right, we're getting started. You alluded to it earlier. Wagner Fabiano, he was out for 2 years. He came back. You wouldn't even known he was gone for 2 weeks. I mean, he looked fantastic out there. What did you think of that performance?
I thought Wagner looked really good, and what people don't realize is that he delivered a couple of shots. He knocked a couple of teeth out. I mean, his stand-up looked good, and I mean, his submission game is insane. So it didn't shock me that his submission game was good, but he didn't really miss a beat. I mean, there's no ring rust, and he really hasn't had a fight in a couple of years. It's not like he's had a few small fights, but he looked great. He looked like, and this is a great opportunity for him. I mean, he's at an age now where he still can do it, but there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for him going forward. But man, he just grabbed it by the throat. I thought he looked great.
And also Mike Richardson. I mean, this kid's fantastic. Last time we were here, actually, Bellator 64, quick knockout here. What do you see in the future for him? I mean, obviously in the tournament, but it's a highlight reel waiting to happen every time.
Yeah, he is. I mean, that was like your kind of old-school Mirko Cro Cop head kick. And his last knockout, I mean, that was just that Hordecki knockout was crazy. His hands were just lightning quick and accurate. His wrestling is really good. We've never had to see it, but he uses it primarily to keep guys off of him and prevent the takedown, so he can keep punching him and kicking him in the head. So I thought he looked awesome. I mean, I haven't seen his submission game. I haven't seen him on the ground really in any kind of a scramble, but from what I've seen, I mean, he's like a highlight reel. So he's a good kid, and he's given amazing performances. So we'll see what happens next.
It seems a lot of the Bellator titles be defended early in the new year. You got Michael Chandler coming up, the vacant middleweight title, Ben Askren, Carl Amasu, obviously. Was that sort of a conscious effort to come out with a bang on Spike TV, or was that just kind of the way things played out?
It was a combination. I mean, part and parcel of it was obviously we want to have a lot of great fights on Spike as we come out of the box. We've got some just loaded tournaments coming out of the box, and we looked at it and we looked at some of the fights. We kind of looked at this season on MTV2 as an opportunity to create the next Chandler, the next Curran. Mike Richmond, perfect example. I mean, we're talking about him right now. You're like, my God, he's got incredible knockout power. My team's been looking at him for the last year from a developmental perspective, and now he's coming into his own. Maybe Richmond is the guy. Maybe Rad Martinez is the guy who uses this tournament as that catalyst to be the next guy. But we thought we'd focus very heavily on developing that next Curran, that next Askren, that next Chandler in this tournament, and then ultimately bring out a lot of the big guns when we get to Spike. So you'll see Slamenko Falcoa and Chandler versus Hahn and the Patricio Pitbull versus Pat Curran fight, which is going to be epic. I mean, it's a lot of big fights. Askren versus Amasu. There's like a huge number of world title fights that are going to be really great. So, it'll be big on Spike, but I think there's a lot more bullets in this gun in terms of this season as well.
Sure, and we've touched on this with you before in the past, but really a lot of the Bellator model, tips its hat to the homegrown talent. It really hasn't been signing cast-off guys, so to speak, just really the homegrown talent. Is that kind of be the model going into Spike TV where, like you mentioned just a second ago, the homegrown talent?
Yeah, I mean, at this point we've got a great foundation brewing. I mean, you look at our welterweight division right now, and you're going to see Doug Lima, and you're going to see Paul Semtex Staley, and you're going to see the return of John Copenhaver, War Machine, and you're going to see Ben Killaby Saunders, you're going to see Amasu fight Askren. So we've got this genesis of this incredible strength at 70, and then at 45 you've got all these different fighters that are well known under our banner. So you'll see those guys, but you'll also see that maturation. Like I said, whether it's Richmond or whether it's Rad Martinez or whether it's Wagner, just light and fire at a longer kind of end of his career, we'll keep developing it. And then it's the Volkov at heavyweight, who's like our version of a Stefan Struve. He sounds like 6'7", and he's got amazing striking. You never saw him on the ground, but the guy's got crazy jiu-jitsu. So, we'll keep doing both of them simultaneously. We've got some great names, and we'll keep developing the new names as well.
Yeah, one thing that's very obvious, a lot of promotions scout in Brazil, which you guys do, but you guys have dug deep into the Russian market. And in your opinion, is that kind of the untapped oil of the MMA world?
Yeah, I've said it a few times. I think Russia is the new Brazil. I mean, I think, Russia and Brazil are going to set up a very unique triangle between Brazil, the United States, and Russia. I mean, our Russia 2 deal is literally with the ESPN of Russia. I mean, we reach the entirety of Russia. It's the biggest TV deal in the history of Russian television and MMA. So, and we've just been able to grab great Russian fighter after great Russian fighter because they're all seeing us on their version of Espen and coming to this organization. So there are some crazy talented fighters, especially at Rustsport, where Alexander Slamenko's gym. I mean, they're just warrior after warrior. You're going to see Tiger next week. Koreshkov fought a couple of weeks ago for us and looked unbelievable. He's going to fight, coming up against Marius Sarumskis in the next round of that tournament. So, yeah, I mean, it's Russia's going to give us a lot of fighters, and they also are wickedly exciting fighters as well, especially coming out of the Semenko's camp. So, yeah, it's a great talent pool.
Just two more questions here. We appreciate your time. We're kind of seeing a crossover appeal of some of the Bellator roster now. Obviously, King Mo going to TNA. Also, Rad Martinez, with the feature on ESPN. Very inspirational special, but how important is that to Bellator's growth, the overall crossover appeal going into Spike TV now?
Oh, it's huge. It's hugely important. I mean, the first and foremost concern we have as an organization is, can you fight? Sure. Because our format doesn't lend itself to, reality stars becoming champions. You win, you move on, you lose, you go home. It's a very simple format. It's real sports. Mm-hmm. But you get a story like Brad Martinez's story. You get the King Mo personality. You get these kind of guys, and the Michael Chandlers of the world. Their stories, their personas, how they interact with consumers and viewers draws more people in, and nobody really tells those stories better than Spike. So we're happy with the group we've got now, and we'll build new guys on it.
Sure. Wrapping up here, last time we spoke with you was last April, Bellator 64, right when the reality series had been announced, and you didn't have too much info for us. It was announced last week that the Bellator will be holding open tryouts. That's November 10th, American Top Team, Coconut Creek, Florida. What can you tell us about the show? What's the format? What can we expect? Any little hints you can give us?
I can't give you a lot of hints, but a couple things you'd be safe to say is it's format-wise, it will ring through a lot of the kind of themes that we as a company espouse. There are not going to be a lot of guys that are going to be voted back on the island, if you will. You know what I mean? You're going to have to win to make it to the promised land in this reality show. And, Sam Kaplan and Zach Light on my team have done an unbelievable job recruiting fighters for this show. We're going to do, one, maybe two open tryouts to fill in some of the spots, but the depth of this show in terms of what really matters, which is how good are the fighters, is insane. It is really deep in terms of talent. I mean, literally, there will be a group of guys who come out of this and put on great performances in the Bellator cage on a big platform on Spike.
Is there any word on what the weight classes are going to be, or is there going to be a little bit of each?
Right now, we're looking at 55 and 70.
Okay.
And that's kind of where Sam and Zach and the whole talent development team have focused their energy in terms of going out and finding guys.